is just joining us for the first time, if this is your first, if this is your first call or this is your first session with us in TestarsQuarter, we'd like to give you a shout out. You can indicate by a raise of hand or you drop your favorite emoji. Do we have anybody like that? Let us give you a shout out. We're so glad to have you here. It's good to have you here. It's a good place to be, especially when you are on a journey in software testing. You need to go with a group of people that have gone ahead before. So since we do not have anyone for now, I'll go straight to introduce our facilitator for tonight. His name is Oluwatomi Ojebuoboh. I hope I got that correction, that pronunciation right. He's the lead QA engineer of Zone Payment Network and is a seasoned software quality assurance engineer with over 6 years of experience spanning industries like banking, fintech, and consulting. His expertise includes test automation, performance testing, and process optimization. He's particularly known focusing on integrating agentic AI to enhance workflows and improving software delivery outcomes. With a commitment to industry best practices and cross-functional collaboration, it consistently drives high quality results across varied development methodologies and life cycles. Ladies and gentlemen, help me to welcome Oluwatomi as it takes us on that very important subject of negotiating timeline. Welcome, Oluwatomi. We are so glad to have you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here as well, and I'm looking forward to a very exciting time where we can just learn from one another, basically. I know I'll be doing a lot of facilitating, but essentially we're really learning from each other. So that's the goal for today. So I'll share my screen just very quick so we can get into it.
You're welcome.
I hope you guys can hear me clearly. I'm very audible, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. So yeah, the topic before us, and it's something I want to believe, even though you're not so used to even quality assurance as a domain. Conflict is something that cuts across, right? It's something that happens across industries, across our work daily operations, even human interactions, right? Even beyond work, take it down to your day-to-day living, people you live with, people you relate with, because we're relational beings. So, conflict is bound to happen, right? Either from misinterpretation, miscommunication, a number of varying factors can actually land us to having what we call conflicts. Now we're even looking at it as it affects the way we work, the impact of the work we do, our productivity, because a lot of this is tied into managing and effectively understanding these concepts of conflicts and negotiating timeline resources. So when we talk about the negotiating of timeline resources, we'll still come into that on a very broader spectrum, because that would be another, and everybody on this call, to be honest, I see us as you might not be leading a team particularly, right? But we're all potential leaders, and you might even be leading a different capacity, even though you're not leading a team. So this topic we're actually looking at, like I mentioned earlier, really cuts across. It's something that we will be able to apply strategic concepts and use it to improve the way we work, improve the way we even live as humans, and we relate to people. So it's going to help us, and from the negotiation standpoint, negotiating timeline, resources, having to have sit down from the position of someone who is trying to set things in order, because that's part of what leadership will help you do. Beyond your day-to-day, you have to see things from a place of order, in terms of things need to move, things like obstacles that are not helping you to achieve your goals, your objectives. You need to find a way to get those things up the way. So those are part of what we'll be talking about when it comes to negotiating timelines, resourcing, and many things around that. So I'm going to skip the bio. I think um, that has been done. I want to use this opportunity to also appreciate the organizing team, that is TestarsQuarters, for giving me the opportunity to be here to share knowledge to, and of course learn from amazing minds, because I'm sure we'll still have time to interact in terms of question and answer discussion and all of that. So it's going to be a very, very like open floor. And like if you have questions, if you have feedbacks as we proceed along, can just make use of the chat room. Just drop your comments there, and of course I'll take a look at them as we proceed. So the outline, I'm looking at very, very core concepts, fundamental to what we want to achieve. So why it matters, why are we trying to even, why do we need to even understand how to manage conflicts? Why do we need to talk about negotiating timelines and resourcing, or even the resources that are working with us and all of that? So the common types of conflicts, the triggers, what really starts it, what can begin a conflict, even within the team, external teams, cross-functional teams. How is it? How does it get started, really, or what can trigger it? And we have the next outline that speaks to a framework where we can use to say, oh, okay, let's use this approach to tackle conflict resolution to get positive outcomes, right? And negotiating in a QA context. So just bringing it home again, like I said, it's a very broad concept, but we're trying to narrow it down to QA. But like I said, even as we try to do that, it doesn't limit the efficacy of what we're trying to do really just to QA. This concept is something you can still apply outside of even the QA domain. You can apply it across your development teams. You can apply it across your project management, product, even the software development lifecycle, even from a business standpoint, right? Not even talking about anything that has to do with tech now. From a business standpoint, you can leverage all of this and find a way to get value, like, and don't let conflict get the best of your team and what you're trying to achieve as a unit. So real life scenario, we also look at case studies, and that I will still throw it open to us. Just give us examples of, even it could be something that is currently happening within your space, and you guys are having a very, or it might even be just yourself having a very thorough time at work and trying to find the balance between probably yourself, your team members, or your direct supervisor, things like that, that ensue between teams during the course of working together. So we're looking at real life scenarios. We'll also look at how we can tackle this stuff head on, so we can get the best of productivity as we work and preventing future conflict. So the first slide which we have here talks about why it even matters, right? So it matters in a whole lot of way, right? And as QA teams, there are a number of things that look us in the face, like in terms of challenges, especially when it comes to the matter of conflict. And conflict, when you hear conflict, the first thing that comes to mind, people will think, oh, they're trying to resolve issues between maybe two team members are having issues, or you're having an issue with your line manager, or you're having, so the word conflict in itself doesn't, if we want to look at it from that spectrum, we would not be doing justice to it, because it goes beyond just having a misunderstanding with somebody. So there are different types of conflict which we will still look at, right? Because conflicts come in different ways. It could be your time, it could be resourcing, it could be the misunderstanding part, which has to do with communication and some other things. So we'll get into that. But just why it matters, right? The team will face a lot of deadlines. You know, I work in an environment where, in fact, it's not just where I work. It's been a trend, like almost everywhere I am. The organization will always want whatever it is you're delivering, they want it to come out like yesterday, right? So it's like everything is priority. Everything is tied to this. There's this sense of urgency around delivery. Okay, there's a deadline for a project, or they're trying to do some final spec scoping for a particular product. Everybody has given their timeline. QA gives timeline, and there's a lot of pushback. Why can't you do it in so and so time? Why does it have to take? Of course, you have to give justifications from some of these things, but I'm just trying to give us a sense that there is always this notion of that the deadlines are very strict, stringent, and we need to like always deliver based on that. Then the resource constraint, that's also a part. Resource from human resource could be tooling, like you're having to do some things that probably if you had the support of very advanced tools, it'd be 10x more productive than what you're currently doing. So you also have the point from conflict priorities between the developers, your product guys, even the business guys, the stakeholders, where we're trying to find a middle ground. Everybody's trying to find a balance on what the expectation really is from across all touch points from developers, product, and the business. So that happens too. And you also have what we call the poor conflict handling, where delays can be from a number of things. It could be even from development, probably from the project scope. We already said, oh, X, Y, and Z is supposed to happen. Development is supposed to take 2 weeks. QA is supposed to begin the proper functional testing at the beginning of the maybe third sprint, which we started in the third week. And in the course of that, the whole stuff spilled into like the development work spilled into that third week. QA hasn't started already. So by the time the work fully gets to QA, there's always a lot of pressure that QA needs to also deliver within the project timeline, not considering the fact that developers are already like eating into the time allocated for functional testing itself and every other stuff that's supposed to go into that process of testing, maybe functional testing, retesting, regression, bug fixing, every other thing that's supposed to happen. So these things can cause conflicts, delays, poor quality. Probably you're having too many back and forth. You fix something, you're sending it back for fix, and developer is saying, no, it's not a bug, or it's something from a miscommunication based on the specification of the requirements. It wasn't clearly stated out that this should be X, Y, and Z. But from a product quality standpoint, if you these are the requisite that needs to be on a system and it's missing, and you keep flagging it, and developer is saying, but they didn't put in the requirement. So at the end of the day, we have to find a middle ground to resolve things like that. So the project itself can gain traction, we can move forward, we can annul every form of friction within the team. Then we also have the part of negotiation. So negotiation is a very key part of business. So even beyond the technical part of what we do, there's always the business angle to every of the objectives that even the team is expected to deliver, because you're supposed to still follow the organization strategic goal, whereby you're helping the organization to be profitable at the end of the day, beyond what you do as a day-to-day, your BAU. So the negotiation part comes like you just have to like wear that cap at some point, whereby you're able to stand your ground, you're able to do some form of assessment within your team, such that people don't even get burnt out, right? So you're able to share the workload evenly across the team, and also you're able to even recommend things that needs to be done. For instance, if you're feeling that your team is stretched, you're able to recommend on time to say we need more hands, or we need X, Y, and Z to make us more effective, instead of having to do all that we currently do from an operational standpoint. So I'll be moving to the next slide, where we have common conflict triggers and the types. So like I mentioned, I think I've been, because of like discussing, we've mentioned some of these things like unclear requirements, which is like very, very principal, in the sense that as QA engineers, what we live by and what we work by is what is stated. We don't even like, there's nothing like, oh, somebody's telling you this is how the application should work. If you want me to critically assess that system, just put them in the requirement document, because I won't even look at what you're saying. I won't even treat. I won't even act on it. It's not stated clearly, right? Because that's the only thing that is binding. For many reasons, you can argue that, but then the appropriate way to work is to have a very clearly defined requirement. And the reason why that is because if tomorrow if the scope changes, or if you're having issues with what was tested and the outcomes that you're having on the system, the requirement is a very clear basis to actually help with that kind of a conflict. For instance, it's a very clear basis to help resolve that. To say what were we expecting in terms of expectation from the requirement and what was being delivered to on the product. So could it be a place of saying, oh, what was delivered, there was a scope creep or something when the requirement was being scoped, they had X, Y, and Z defined in it. Then over time, the requirements changed, right? And it wasn't updated in the documentation. And the engineers developed based on that. So you can see how important the requirement is. So if it's not properly updated, if it's not speaking to what the features should be, and the developer goes ahead to build based on a wrong specification, or is building based on what was mentioned to him. For instance, they had a spec discussion, product discussion call, and they just mentioned a lot of things. So want the application to do X, Y, and Z, and he was taking his own notes, right? And maybe because of some of us work in very fast-paced environments whereby we're very agile, we want to just move on the fly and start building, start shipping things out. So we don't follow the proper process of trying to get these things out in the requirement, which should be binding, because the same requirements that is used in building the product is what is expected to test the product. Right? So there's a proper alignment, and there's everything is up to date really in terms of what the scope should cover. So there's no scope creep, there's nothing vague or unclear as to what the requirement is expected to achieve. So you also have shifting priorities in the sense that, oh, we're trying to test X, Y, and Z. We have a product, we have commitments to deliver this. Management is also saying like this thing is also priority. That one too happens. So at the end of the day, we are trying to find the balance to what is like priority and what is not. Because somebody usually say, a friend used to tell me, say, if everything is priority, then nothing is really a priority. Because I mean, everything cannot be priority. Everything cannot have that same 100% priority. So at the end of the day, you need to do proper scoping, because when we begin to shift priorities, there are always conflicts. This person will come for you. Wow, we not tested our product, this and that. Business will come. And you also have another business dragging you. Why is this product still pending with QA? What's the delay? What's that? Are you guys not able to, you know? And you have to work within the confines of the resource you have to handle some of these tasks. So there's a bit of trying to communicate. So you don't just take everything in and say we're delivering next one. So it's a bit of trying to communicate, look at the workload, look at the same strength that you have. Then you give realistic timelines and manage stakeholder expectations. So they're not expecting you to deliver something that you know from your when you see that this is going to take as much as 3 weeks, depending on various complexities. It could be the scope, it could be how large the product is. And you're now trying to soak into the pressure of, oh, there's a lot of demand from management, this thing needs to go out in 2 weeks. So that other 1 week, who is going to compensate for it? So if you agree to that, sometimes it's going to have an impact. It's either going to have an impact in the sense that you're not going to be able to deliver the work, or you're going to overstretch your guys, which at the end of the day might lead to lack of motivation, or they're going to be burnt out, or you guys might not even deliver the product well because you are being pressed for time. So a lot of checks that should have been done have been skipped. Everybody's trying to rush, not doing your due diligence, which should never happen as a QA guy, because quality assurance is very procedural. Like, you need to follow the process. Whatever you've written is what you need to follow. Whatever you've written as your test cases, you need to execute. Whatever has been documented is what you need to also automate at the end of the day when you have stability across your system. So you have last minute changes from development. This one causes a lot of issue when changes are being made to the product, and I'm very sure a number of QA guys can relate to this. And you are not carried along as a QA guy, and you're just testing, and you just what just happened there? This thing is no longer behaving as expected. Developer, and oh, sorry, we made a change here, this and that. But I mean, those are things that happen, and sometimes it causes issues, especially when it's like a last minute. You're trying to prepare for a UAT. You've already tested, you've already had an understanding of what the system is expected to deliver, and a last minute change was implemented on the system. Then you get into a UAT and you're seeing surprises, and everybody's like, okay, so what just happened here? Did this not go through quality assurance testing and all of that? Why we're experiencing this at the point of UAT? And we begin to now speak plenty English and grammar, try to make a case for that, because so it can lead to a lot of conflict, because it makes light of the effort that you put into your work as a quality assurance and engineer. Because when you begin to see things like that, undermines your quality expertise, the time you've invested into the product quality aspect of everything you've done. So limited testing resources, I think I've mentioned this. I won't really buttress on this so much, because we can do as much as the resourcing we have to, because even if we talk about resources, you think it's not just people alone. Tools are like very key these days. Like tools are going to, even the near future, tools are going to be our biggest resource in the sense of having how we work and what we do, because as of today, AI can do a whole number of what we manually do. So it's going to take away a lot of redundancy. In fact, a lot of people would just find themselves very redundant and might not be so much relevant in what we call work. So it's going to be very revolutionary, and the more we begin to see how we can use these new developments to improve how we work, how effective we are, because it gets to a point where organizations start looking out for people who are smart at what they do, not just having the core fundamental understanding of what the concept of quality assurance or development or software development is, and looking out for people that can be very intuitive, innovative. How adept are you with your automation frameworks and many other things? Even beyond automation, how can you now take it to the next level using AI to optimize your work, right? The things that you would have done, like even writing automation script that would have taken you like a week, 2 weeks to do. How can you use AI, leveraging all the resourcing you have to push this thing out in like a day, and at the end of the day, obtain the same results that somebody who would have sat down to do everything from without the help of a tool. So tooling is very key. I think I can't overemphasize that. So different quality expectations between stakeholders. So there is the part whereby products want to release with known bugs, in the sense that QA said, oh, we're done testing, X, Y, and Z were noticed. This is at the priority of the bugs, and it's left to you to decide if you want us to continue or push out to production, because we recommend. That's why I say QA always recommend, right? We test, we recommend, we give our feedbacks. We recommend that these products, these bugs that we've noticed we have like 2 low priority bugs there. We have 1 medium. There's nothing critical there. There's nothing high. But then if you feel, based on our feedbacks, you want us to still go ahead to deploy and release this into production without having to fix all of these guys, I think they can come in as remediation, enhancement to the system, or bug fixing, where we do some kind of patchwork and update the fixes to production. So if you want to go that approach, let us agree. So such things can cause conflict as well, where you're trying to find a balance between speed and stability. Because you're trying to release MVP, you might not want to say, okay, you want everything to be 100% ready, right, in terms of how it's expected to work. So you're now making trade-offs to say, okay, let's just accommodate X, Y, and Z. So if all these things are not properly aligned, it can lead to conflict. Or for instance, it was deployed, product did not communicate to stakeholders that they had some things that they were going to come back to. They just kept it in the backlog. But because of this is MVP, we just want to release this thing to production so people can have access to it. And we don't want to wait and miss the deadline of this release. So we have decided to go ahead with the release and coming back to that. So if you are not properly communicating all these things, there'll probably be issues because stakeholders will be saying, but you said everything is delivered. Why are you coming back to us to tell us that you have some things in backlog or there's something? So that needs to happen because it's communication across teams. So it ties along with expectations from stakeholders, even your limit. So all of these conflict triggers, like some of them might be independent, but a lot of them are still kind of interwoven, they tie into each other. So understanding conflict types, I'll just try I want to be a bit faster so I can just do some form of justice to what I've prepared for us. Then we also have time to take questions and discuss. So understanding conflict triggers, disagreements on approach or the process. So it's okay to disagree, right? Because for me, I mean, we're humans and we cannot always agree with everything that is said before us because where is the place of logic and thinking? If everything is just say do, when we're not robots, that we just always take in instructions. So disagreements is bound to happen. And this is just one type of conflict. It could be a strategic type in the sense of I'll give you a course now. You can have differing opinions on implementation, testing, or the release method, whereby you are trying to say, okay, should we do manual or automation testing, or should we skip regression testing for this one and just focus on the coffee? So many of like there could be a number of differing opinions, right? You guys can disagree, you guys can agree, but at the end of the day, we need to come to a conclusion and a shared understanding. So the resolution on that is that you need to have a shared workflow. Retrospective needs to be aligned. You have to have retrospectives for alignment to say, oh, we need to just look at all this stuff that we've done. Let's align on how things can become better for us. Let's have a shared workflow. So we are seeing everything that everybody is doing, and we can now determine which process, which method is going to work for us. So we also have the resource conflict, competing for tools, people, or time. So this one is more on the operational side of things, where, for instance, you have a shared staging environment. So the tester is assigned to multiple projects, right? And there's only one shared staging environment. So that would definitely impact because he's trying to do X, Y, and Z on this environment, but other activities are going on concurrently on that environment by other testers, which can also affect the output of what he's doing. So you have the impact, missed deadlines, which can be something that organization and what's called management always frown at it because you've given them your word to say X, Y, and Z will be delivered by this, and you're already overshooting the time. So it leads to missed deadlines as well when you have a conflict in resource, not being able to maximize your 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 people. And it comes from a people, it comes from a process, it comes from a tooling perspective too. So it's either you're having too much to handle from a people perspective, and the workload is more than what your team is able to handle. So you definitely have missed deadlines. There could be compromise on quality because people are not doing, they're not testing it as they should because they're just doing more like smooth tests. They're not doing proper functional tests end to end on those products because there's a lot of pressure to deliver. There's a lot of it could even come from a point of not even having people that are very competent as well. And yeah, that ultimately can just cause that resource conflict. Why was this thing not tested? Or they tested it, okay, how was this tested? So the execution approach could be test execution efficiency metric is very poor in terms of how it was being tested, the number of things that were taken into consideration while the test was being done. So that happens too. So we also have what we call the conflict that leads to priority. Dispute on what should be tested first, first interpersonal. So you just look at it, like I mentioned, everything cannot be priority. So you have misalignment on what is priority and what is not priority, because it's just clear that one. The fundamental way of handling that is just one: communication. Communication, align your priorities in terms of planning and communicate to stakeholders so everybody is aligned. So there's nothing like, oh, I'm expecting that this is happening. So you can manage the expectation of your clients. So you look at performance versus usability. You also take into account things like what we call risk-based testing. So you test based on risk, looking at a lot of factors. Okay, if this thing doesn't go, if this feature doesn't go live today, what the impact does it have on our client, our customers? So that one can take like the topmost priorities. So I'm just going to run very fast because of time. So conflict resolution framework. So this framework just helps us to put all these things into a bucket and say, okay, with this framework, we're able to address conflict. So you need to identify what the root cause is. So don't always assume. That's number one thing. Never assume. Clarify all your facts. We work with realistic data. So like I said, QA is very procedural, it's process oriented. And everything we do, it's backed up with data, a number of test cases, number of test execution, test cycles, everything. So you have your facts, you have everything. Identify root cause where there are issues. You also acknowledge people's perspective. People are always telling you this, so you need to always be a good listener, right? You need to always take feedbacks in a positive way, see how you can embed it into your current process and improve what you currently have. You focus on shared goals. So it's not just about your team, it's not about what you guys are trying to do as just a modicum of what the organization stands for. So you have to look at it from the lens of the organization standpoint and say, okay, this is the organization's goal towards delivering quality, and align yourself with that shared goal. In fact, the organization goal is what you need to cascade your own individual goals as a team, or departmental goals, and of course to the individual in your team, to say this is what we are aligning ourselves with as a team, right? Then we have to collaborate to explore options. So I believe in um, we're trying to do a lot of things, right? So we need to leverage one another. That's why we have each other. That's why we have a team that we work with. I don't believe in you trying to figure out everything. Can walk up to the product manager and tell him, guy, we need to figure out how to make X, Y, and Z. This thing is becoming a bottleneck. How can we work together to achieve the same goal? Because at the end of the day, we are scored as a team, like the software product team or development team. It then comprises QA, development, product, project, together. So we have a shared goal, right? So it makes sense that we're able to collaborate effectively and deliver what we need to deliver. So that I agree on it. We have negotiation. So when you're negotiating, you should always have, it needs to be clear. There's nothing vague in terms of oh, we just say we'll take 5 days to test this. Why is it 5 days now? So when you're putting out your negotiations from a timeline, you need to put in estimates and say, okay, this thing, you've kind of done your own homework to say the effort required to go into this implementation would just this. There's a lot of things to be checked on the back end, the number of services, um, things that needs to be done from the front end, the defects buffer that you need to create, allocate time to accommodate for defects, and say, okay, once it comes back, there's going to be retesting, regression still has to be done. So these are the things that forms your basis, and it needs to be very clear. It needs to be driven by evidence and clear result metrics. So from a resourcing perspective as well, you need to justify the need with data. Comes to tell your HR to say, oh, you need staffing or you're understaffed here. So there's a need to justify with data to say, okay, during our last release testing, X, Y, and Z, this were the number of test cases allocated to each member of the team. And this was the impact. This was how far we were able to go. In fact, we missed our deadline by a day because of the workload. So you need to put in proper data, proper facts to negotiate when you're coming to discuss with some of these things. It could even be your tools to say, oh, if we had X, Y, and Z too, it could make us 20x more efficient in how we work. The time the CAT to deliver this would have been better. So those are part of things that goes into consideration for tooling as well, and resourcing. So the stakeholder alignment, you define quality goals like collaboratively, because for that one, it doesn't sit on just yourself. Anything that has to do with stakeholders. So that needs to happen. It needs to be clear. Set up regular checkpoint updates. You guys have to have your sync meetings where you bring them up to speed with where things are at each point in the project. And risk management as well. Having a kind of risk-based metrics to track what is priority and what is not, right? And move ahead with the most critical things while other things can follow after. So the practical negotiation tips, if you look at the right side where I say come with data, don't just come and speak English or type something that is just vague. Where I work, the space where I work, you can't get away with it, because you have to, it's like you have to prove everything. You have to show why you actually need what you need. So speak in terms of impact to quality and risk. Offer options instead of flat refusals. Don't just be saying, no, this thing cannot work. You need to give it like varied perspectives to why you feel what you are requesting for should be. Build relationships before you need them. That's very, very key. Like relationship is like the bedrock of many of the things we want to achieve. Because like just imagine you have a smooth sale with somebody, it's easier to get things from them than they're just trying to meet them for the first time and trying to get warmed up to them and every other thing. So stay calm, professional, and outcome focused. So real life scenario, I'll just run through this very quickly, and we might just look at, let me see what I have after here. Okay, so we're almost there. So development delivers a build that takes 3 days. Okay, but this one was even 3 days late. So let's assume the build was supposed to come out on Wednesday and it came out the upper Monday. So these are shrinked into the QA test window significantly, and the original release date remains unchanged. Like what was communicated to the stakeholders was that this thing was going to come out on Wednesday, but currently we're already even at that Wednesday that we're supposed to deliver the entire thing, it hasn't gotten to QA yet, or maybe it's just getting to QA. So it's already created a pressure on the QA team to deliver the full. So are we going to say QA is going to deliver what should have taken them like 2 days to test or 3 days to test in 1 day or in few hours, right? Because the other guys have eaten into the project time already. So conflicts can happen here. So this is just a very good case study I just put together and say, okay, you have unrealistic expectation, because if you have done proper scoping, you should have known that your development work would take longer than that. So QA should not be the slave, or we should not take the heat of saying, oh, you guys now have to start running and trying to meet up with the deadline to complete the entire release. So resolution strategy is to present a risk analysis, high potential issues. You negotiate, add one more tester. That could be a way, it might not be a way, it might be forced to reduce the non-critical test scope. So just focus on what is critical, or you agree on a post-release validation to say, after we've gone live, we can now come and pick up some other items that are not high risk, and we push them as enhancement to the system. So these are just strategies to finding a way, because at the end of the day, it has to be a win-win situation, right? You find yourself in that kind of situation whereby you are boxed under pressure to deliver it. So you can use any of this strategy to just say, okay, based on what we currently have, we want to just do a form of rebasing of our expectations. So it's either you give us one more resource to push this project faster, or use any of these tips here. And this list, trust me, are not exhaustible. You can still like think through and see other strategies that you can adopt to be more effective and deliver the project as a whole. So the outcomes remain that quality has to be 100% in check. The release date is preserved without compromising core functionality. Trust is built through data and data-driven negotiation. So preventing feature conflicts, we want to ensure smoother collaboration, avoid last-minute surprises. So it's just a summary of everything we've been saying, that the acceptance criteria have to be clear, and what you mean by done. When something is done, what's our definition of done? Everything needs to be stated clearly from a requirement standpoint. Early QA involvement in planning, regular cross-team syncs, that's keeping everybody up to date with what's going on the project, especially your stakeholders. visible updated test progress dashboard. So let everything be clear. It's not like, oh, we've tested, we are done with testing, but there is nothing to show that you actually tested. It's just word of mouth. So you need to have your dashboards or your test management tools where you say, okay, this is the statistics of things that were tested, these were the things that failed, these were the number of cycles, iterations that was carried out. So many of these things are what gives them confidence to the fact that you said you've actually tested, right? Then you have your post-release retrospectives where you review what has gone well during the course of testing with your team or what didn't go well and see how you can improve to have better outcomes. So key takeaway is that conflict is normal. It will always happen. So it's something we just need to live up to and find a way of addressing. So we just have to handle it with facts. We have to be very aware of the risk, and we have to have the win-win mindset, which I'm very big on, which will only happen when we have a collaborative spirit when we work. So don't always see that, oh, I want to just, it's my team, it's about us. It's never about you. It's about the team. It's about the organization. It's about the shared goals and common objectives that you guys have. So at this point, I would just want us to take our questions and few minutes we have left. You can just discuss. I think, yep. Or are there questions in the comment section? I'll just check through to see. Okay, so the only comment here is just basketballs. I'm not seeing any questions. So if we have any, just feel free. You can raise the hand, and or Faith, I'll just leave that to you to moderate anyway. So yeah,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much, Oluwatomi, for this very insightful session. You took your time to explain every step of the way. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Guys, thank you for cheering him up, cheering him on. Yes. So please, if you have any question with regard to this topic, now is the time to ask a question. I know that Tommy did a very good job, so you might not have too much question, but then if you have any question, please, it's time for you to ask. All right, while we are waiting for question, if you would have any question for this session, I just want to announce today is Friday, and I want to announce that our 50% discount is still on. It's supposed to close today. Please, for the Nigerian Software Testing Week, we have our discount code is already in the community. Kindly make use of it so that you can get a 50% discount off the actual payment for the Software Testing Week. It's going to be a 6 days grand event, 5 of which will be hybrid and 1 will be a physical event here in Lagos. The bulk bounty program is already on, and after now, there'll be a session with Ibironke Yekini, which has been ongoing for the past few days now. So if you would like to join, let me drop the link. There is a link for for a session with her tonight again. For all the people that are interested, the bulk bounty program especially is for later this month, and that's where we are going to be picking the winners of the 2 million naira cash prizes for who are going to be getting those prizes at the NSCW physical event. So you can check it out. I'll drop the link while Tommy answers the question. There's a question in the chat box I just dropped now. Let me check it out.
Oh
We
yeah,
have
okay.
okay. Can you read it, or I should read it out?
Oh, you can go ahead to read it. You can go ahead.
Okay, my concern will be when the QA time has been eaten. How are they supposed to do the magic of meeting the deadline that is less than what was agreed?
Yeah, so I was just going to respond to that. If they've eaten it, they need to vomit it and give us back the time. But that was just on the lighter side. So what happens basically is that is still what I've just said here, right? Because this thing happens from like it's not something it has come to stay in a way. And that's why we're having these sessions to say, okay, from a QA side, how can we adjust to still support the organization goal? I know it's not might not be the most ideal and efficient way to say, oh, like I mentioned, there's always a gap. The gap number one is that it wasn't properly scoped from a product standpoint or project standpoint to say the work that needs to be done from development would have taken 2 weeks, but now it's taking 3 weeks and that's eaten into the timeline for testing. So the strategy is still remains what I've put in the middle one here. If you can see, QA presents a risk analysis to highlight potential issues. So some of these strategies could help us to address this. Maybe you want to add extra resource to your team to be able to push out the work within the limited time that is left. And you also want to say you want to just pick the most critical parts of the system and focus on that if you have to be able, if you want to meet the deadline. So all these things, like I said, you need to present it because it's not just saying, oh, these guys did not meet up their deadline and we have a very limited time to cover what we have and we just test only what is critical. So that call is not on just, you can't just make that call yourself. So you need to still present it and everybody agrees to say, okay, let's just test what is critical and so we're able to meet up with the deadline. Then post-release, after release is done, we can come back to say this low risk areas that was not catered for or catered to during the initial scope, we can now address them as a separate iteration and push them as an enhancement to what we currently have. So that's one way to look at it. The other approach you can adopt, but the main thing is you have to find a strategy, right? So at the end of the day, if you see what I have in the outcome, you guys still maintain focus and on the critical part, then the release date is also preserved without compromising on your quality. That's of the core features of functionality of the solution. Then at the same time, by doing that, you're building trust through transparency and data-driven negotiation because you've already presented the facts, the risk analysis to everybody on the team to say this and this is what needs to be done. So yeah, I think that should be the way to go. But I said the resolution strategy is not exhaustive. You can have more ways, or you can be very intuitive and innovative on how you feel you can manage some of these unrealistic expectations that come up from time to time. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for that answer. My comment is in the comment section. Adigun said, don't mind them. They build something for weeks or months and want the QA to test in hours. It happens every time, yeah. But you need to learn to negotiate, have conversations, discuss it, and let them know that it's very important for you to test thoroughly as a QA. I remember some days ago, something like this happened, and I was I was told to test something. I was like, I had to have a conversation. Then I had to list down the products that I'm supposed to test, about the level. By the time I was done with the PM, with the explanation of everything I'm supposed to test, was like, are you the only one testing this? I said yes. Then he understood where I'm coming from. So sometimes you need to have some of these conversations so that they will have an understanding of the timeline that is involved. That, okay, you can't just say that I should test this, because sometimes they will just look at it on the surface level. It's not just to test the product, and on that product you have about 11 products that you are testing. Yeah, say the product has like 15 fields. Can you imagine? So by the time we are done with one product, it can consume like 3 hours of your testing if you're going to test thoroughly. So thank you so much for that, Tommy, and the person that has a question, Emmanuel, and Adigun, for your comment as well. All right, guys, do we have any other questions so that we can wrap it up here for tonight? All right, in the absence of any other question, this is where we're going to be wrapping it up. Okay, somebody said, how can one calculate how much time is needed to cover up? Tommy.
So how much more time is needed to cover up? So like I said, it's still going to, you would have done that from the beginning to say, oh, this is time that is required, because the way you look at it, you look at it from the resourcing standpoint, you look at it from the work that needs to be done. That's the way Faith has mentioned, the way she was able to break it down to the project manager to tell him these are the number of modules that needs to be covered, and you want me to cover it within X, Y, and Z time frame. So that same approach is what you do when you do like an assessment of the work itself, to break it down into not even milestones, just to break it down and estimate effort. Now, what you're estimating is effort. So if one person is testing this, what's the realistic time that it would take for him to test um, one module? And the one module you're talking about is very relative, because a module can have as much as 100 test cases. Some can have just 10, depending on the type of system you're testing. So it still depends on what you are working on and you having to do the work of estimating the effort required. So that one, there's no two ways to it. You just need to understand what is required, and you just have to communicate it. So by then, you know what is needed to cover up. If it's going to be that you need extra hand or you just need more time, there's no way you can meet up. Yep.
All right, thank you so much. So, in the absence of a question, I would like to say a very huge thank you to Oluwatomi Ojebuoboh. Do I get is that the right pronunciation of your name?
Yep, that is it. It's
All
correct.
right.
Oluwatomi or Oluwatomi. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for coming on our um, webinar. We are so grateful to have you. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining and learning together with everyone here. And let us have a lovely weekend. Do not forget to purchase your ticket for NSCW. I've also dropped the WhatsApp number for all the people that are interested in the bulk hunt program in the chat section, so you can check it out. Laven is asking, just a moment. Can we have the recordings of this session, please? Yes, it's usually dropped in the community. If you're not in our community, just search www.testarsquarter on Testers Quarter and then .org. You just register and then it will bring you straight into the community. All the information you need is right in the community. So even the discount code is also in our community. Yes. Thank you so much. I've also dropped the WhatsApp link. You can join the WhatsApp. Thank you so much and let us have a very great night. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.